Hello guys, this is Daniel AG and we are going to start our first SQL Server 2016 DBA TSQL training program in 3 days. So it is time for you guys to install SQL Server 2016 on your laptop or on your server. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step instruction here how to from where you can download it, what are the different steps and procedures you need to do or to follow to get SQL Server 2016 installed. There is, if you already installed SQL Server 2014 or any of the prior versions of SQL Server, definitely there is going to be some difference. Which I will go through that one too. So hold on a second. Let's get started here. So if you are my student, you might have already have my OneDrive link from where you can download the SQL Server 2016 installation. If you haven't received that, please let me know. Those who are watching this video who are not my student, feel free to email me. It is going to be on my YouTube channel, or you can call me directly or email me. I'm more than happy to share my OneDrive link from where you can download the 2016 installation guide as well as the files needed for that. So you can see that these are the 4 files. You need to download the 1, 2, and you can download all the 4. The first one is the SQL Server 2016 installation Word document, and in SQL Server 2016. Microsoft, by default, you are not going to get the SQL Server Management Studio. So you need to have SQL Server Management Studio installed separately, and that is the reason why you are downloading this file here. Okay, so it's very easy. You right click on this and then you click on download. You are going to download to your machine. And then one thing I always recommend is that you create a SQL Server 2016 folder on your local machine and then download that directly to that folder. But in case if your machine is directly downloading to the default download folder, no panic. From there you can download that too. Your SQL Server 2016 folder. Now, once the download is completed, you will be seeing these 4 files here. Now, take a look at the file size. Make sure that the file size you are seeing on your machine is going to be same as what you are seeing in my video. And out of this, one file is extremely large. It's around 1.8 GB. So you need to be patient to download that 1.8 GB file. Okay. Now, once all the 4 files are downloaded, what you need to do is that you need to right click on this one, the one with the file size 155 kilobyte. So right click on it, and then you need to make sure that you run it as an administrator. Now, what it is trying to do is that it is going to extract the files needed. So it is going to create a separate folder under the same directory where you have the files now. So that file directory, the new directory name it is trying to create is this one. So I'm going to click OK here. And now it started. You can immediately see that it automatically created a folder here. Inside this folder, it is going to extract all the files needed to install SQL. So this is going to depends on your machine's muscle power. It's going to take anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes. Okay, I'm going to post the video for now, but once it is done, we are going to continue. All right, so I'm back. So the extraction process is done. You can see the file here, the folder here. So I'm going to go inside that folder. You can see this is actually all the libraries and the files needed to install SQL Server 2016 on your machine. Now, if you are not using my installation files, you have a DVD for SQL Server 2016. When you get into inside that, when you explore that DVD, this is the view you are going to see, or these are the files you are going to see straight away. Now, one prerequisite for SQL Server 2016 is that you need to have .NET Framework 4.6.1 installed. If you haven't downloaded that and installed it, no worries. You can Google it and then figure out where you can find that video. Now, the first thing we need to do is that so it automatically opened the SQL Server installation window. You can see that window flash, but I closed it. What you can do is that you can you see this green icon here it's called as setup. Right click on it and then make sure that you run it as an administrator. It's very important that you need to run it as an administrator. All right, here we go. I'm going to minimize these screens, so it's going to take 1 or 2 seconds to get the SQL Server installation window pop up. There we go, it's coming up. All right, so this is the installation center. That's what they officially call. And the first thing you need to do is that click on the installation icon here, and then click on. You can see that there are various type of installations here. What we are looking right now, what we are trying to do is that creating a SQL Server standalone installation. But later in my training program, I will also be installing how to install a failover clustering and adding additional nodes or the upgrading from prior versions to 2016. We'll be covering all those things as part of the training. So I'm going to go ahead and install a standalone version of SQL Server. So click on this icon, the link here, the blue link here, the first blue link, and wait for that process to start. All right, so the first thing you need to choose is what kind of version you are going for. Well, you can have, there are 3 versions which is going to be very similar, which is the enterprise version, which is the most expensive one, and then you have the evaluation and developer. So the major difference between enterprise, evaluation, and developer is evaluation, it is nothing but enterprise but valid only for 6 months. If you want to use after the 6 months, you can get either a developer license or you can uninstall and reinstall. Now the developer license, it is cheap. I would say it is around less than $100, and it is same as enterprise, but you cannot use it on a production one. But in our case, we are going for an evaluation version. But if you already have a product key from your office or from your client, you can definitely choose this option and enter that. So click next. I accept the license terms. Click next. Trying to run some check, everything is good. Now, it is always a good practice to check for updates before you install the SQL Server. So this is going to take some time, okay? But it is worth to do that. So I choose that option and click next here. All right, and then click next. And this is going to take some time. So I'm going to post the video. Once it is done, I will come back, okay? Hold on. All right, so that validation check is over, and now SQL Engine is this installation window setup is trying to come up with the next window. And here installation actually checking some validations and everything is fine. If you see a error message here, if you see a red into mark here, that is a problem. So if you see that, you need to investigate, or if you have questions, feel free to call me or email me. My number is 267-718-1533, or if you go to my website, empiredatasystems.com, you can find my email too. Now, if you see a firewall warning, no issues, you can just ignore that. Now, click next. All right, so in SQL Server comes with a lot of features or components, and you can pick and choose which one you want to go for. So in this particular installation, I am going to, first I'm going to say select all. So all the check boxes will be checked, and then I'm going to uncheck some of these services which I don't really need. One is the R services, one is the poly based, and then we have R server standalone. And these are the ones I'm trying to uncheck or uninstall. And I mean, at any point, these are services. So at any time, once the installation is done, at any time, you can go back and install these additional features. That is not a big deal. And then you can see that the .NET Framework 4.6, it is needed and it's already installed. If you haven't installed it, then it is going to generate a warning or error. So this is going to be the root directory where everything is going to be installed. There is going to be a footprint in your x86 directory, as well as your program files, x86 and regular program files directory. There is going to be a footprint of SQL Server. But other than that, everything looks good here. I'm going to click next here. All right, so in this window, you need to give a name for the instance. It is not advisable to use the default instance name. It is not, it's against the best practices. So always when you create a SQL Server instance, you need to give a named instance, and the named instance name I'm going to use here is dev 400. Okay. Now you can use whatever name you want, but the only thing is that the instance name has to be unique. It's not case sensitive, but just put it like that. Now, another question I always get from my students is it possible to have 2012 and 2014, 2016 instances side by side? Absolutely, yes, that is not a problem, because at the end of the day, the operating system is going to see SQL Server as services running on top of the Windows operating system. So it is not a problem. You can install multiple versions on the same machine at the same time. All right. The instance name has to be unique. All right, click next here. Okay. So I mentioned that SQL Server, the way the operating system, Windows operating system is going to see SQL Server or services running on top of it. So these are the various services we are going to install. And the only change you need to make here is next to the SQL Server agent service, there is going to be an account and there's going to be a password. We are not worried about password because we are using this local system accounts. But if you are going to install SQL Server on your work environment, there is going to be a Active Directory account under which all your SQL Server agent is going to be running, all your database engine is going to be running. So you need to use Active Directory. If you are using Active Directory, then put that Active Directory name here and corresponding password. But in our case, it is not needed because we are using local system account. But we'll be having more discussion on which account need to be used and what is the pros and cons of that when you come into the training program. Now, only change you need to make here is if you look at the startup type next to the SQL Server agent service, by right now it is manual. Now you manual, you need to change that to automatic. Now, if you look at here, you can see two tabs. One is the service account, one is a collation. Now, by default, the default collation for SQL Server is CIAS. CI is case insensitive, and AS stands for American Standard. We will have more discussion on collation and what's the importance of collation when in class. Okay, but no change here. You can go back to services, and I'm going to click next here. Now, there are two ways you can log into your SQL Server instance, Dev 400 you are trying to create. One is a Windows authentication. Windows authentication means whichever account under which you logged into this particular machine. That account is what going to be a login to the Dev 400 instance. Or you can also create your own SQL Server account. So if you go for the mix mode, which I'm going for, then you can have a Windows account that you can log into that SQL Server with Windows account or SQL Server account. So when you are going for SQL Server account with mixed mode authentication, there is by default there is going to be a system administration account called administrator account called as SA, and you need to provide a password for that, a password you can remember. Confirm the password here. Now, the most important step in this particular window is you need to click this add current user. Wait for a second. It is going to add your Windows account as a valid login for this particular machine. Okay, this particular instance. So this is my my machine name, and this is going to be my login name. So that's what it is. And if you don't click on that current user once after the installation is done, it is hard for you to log in. Okay. All right, so now the couple of other tabs here, data directory, where is going to be the default location of the data file, log file, backup, etc. I mean, if you want, you can make some changes. Again, after the installation also, you can go and make changes. Now, one of the new feature in SQL Server 2016 is configuring the TempDB database. If you are not familiar with TempDB database, most likely it's going to be Greek and Latin, so you can just ignore this small conversation. So in SQL, so prior to SQL Server 2016, it is always advisable to, not prior to, it's always advised in any version of SQL Server, it's always advisable to have multiple data file and log file for TempDB, and ideally it is going to be one TempDB database data file for individual CPU. That's for having a better performance. Now, prior to SQL Server 2016, this feature wasn't there. I mean, the only way you can implement multiple data files for a TempDB is after the installation. You need to manually do that. But in SQL Server 2016, Microsoft added that you can have multiple data files and log files for a TempDB can be designed at those, can be specified at the time of the installation as well. Now, file stream is another one. You can, we'll be seeing file stream in our training program, but later you can configure that. So, but in case if you want to configure along with the installation, that option is also there. All right, so I'm going back to my server configuration tab and click next. I'm not going to make any changes in the analysis services here. We are trying to configure the SQL Server analysis services. No change. Only thing I will do is that I'm going to add current user as an administrator to analysis services. I did that. Now click next. SQL Server reporting services, no change. I'm going to install and configure, and I'm not going to do the SharePoint integration mode, but when you come into the BI training, we'll be seeing how to configure SQL Server reporting services in the SharePoint integration mode. Click next. Distribution replay control, make sure that you don't click on this add current user because that's going to create problems. So I'm going to no change on distributor replay controller. Click next. Here also distributed replay client, again no change. Click next. All right, so far what you did so far is you configure the installation process. Now the installation is going to start. This is going to be more like an abstract on what are the choices we made, etc. Now, if you click on install, it is going to start the installation process, and that is going to take anywhere from 15 minutes to 1 hour, depends upon the CPU and I would say the muscle power of your machine. So I'm going to click install, and then after that, I'm going to post the video. Once everything is done, then I will resume the video. Okay. All right. I'm going to click install here. Now you can see that the installation process started. There is a status bar going across. So watch for that. I mean, keep an eye on that. Once everything is done, I will resume the video. Stay tuned, guys. All right, so the installation did go through fine. After the installation is done, you can see all these green check boxes, which is what we really want to see. But if you see any red into marked, then that means that particular feature has been installed successfully. So you need to scroll down. I mean, we installed a lot of features. If you scroll down, you can see all of them are green. So the installation is successful. That is wonderful. So if you look at here, I mean, in case one of the feature, having an installation issue, then if you look at this blue link or you click on that blue link, that's going to give you more information about, let me click on this. And this is going to give you a log on how the installation did go through. I mean, everything's successful, fine. But if there's an error, then you will be getting more information of that particular. During the installation, if you get an error, the best thing you can do is that you can send me a screenshot, as well as you can share this .txt log file so that I can go through that, and probably I could able to pinpoint what exactly the error is. Okay. All right. So the next step is we can close this. So installation is done. Now, as I mentioned before, the SQL Server 2016 doesn't comes with SQL Server Management Studio by default. So you need to install SQL Server 2016 Management Studio separately. So, and that is what we are going to do next. So you have already downloaded that 2016 SQL Server Management Studio. This is the file I'm talking about. Please take a look at the size of the file. So right click on SSMS and then say run it as an administrator. All right, so I temporarily paused the video, but when you right click on that SQL Server Management Studio and run it as an administrator, it takes some time, so you need to be patient. And once that window launches, this is what it is: SQL Server Management Studio 2016. Now click on install. And this is also going to take a little bit time, so I'm going to post the video again. Okay. It's almost done, I guess. It's towards its last lag. All right, so the setup completed. The SQL Server Management Studio is successfully installed. So I'm going to close this. All right, so we installed the Dev 400 instance, and on top of that, we installed the SQL Server 2016 Management Studio. Hopefully, you have Windows 10. So you click on the start, and then you scroll looking for SQL Server 2016. I hope you see this SQL Server 2016 folder, and click on that drop down. You will be seeing SQL Server Management Studio. You can click on it, or you can right click and then say ping more, and then ping to taskbar. All right, you click on that or ping to taskbar. You can see it is right here. So click on it. First time when you're opening the SQL Server Management Studio, it is going to take some time. All right, you can see it's starting it. All right, so the SQL Server Management Studio launch. So now we need to specify the machine name and the instance you want to connect. You can, if you don't see the next to the server name, if you don't see anything, let's say what you can always do is that use the drop down and then say browse for more, and expand the database engine, and then pick and choose the instance you want to connect. Now the server type always has to be database engine, and authentication you can always need to go for Windows authentication, but we will talk about other authentications later. But in order to log into Dev 400, you need to have Windows authentication. Now click on connect. Now you can see that you are actually connected to the Dev 400 instance. And if you expand the database, right now we don't have any databases, but later when you come into the training program, we'll be having around 4 or 5 different databases will be attached, and attached using attach method, but we'll be discussing all those things during the training program. So right now everything is installed. SQL Server 2016 is installed with the SQL Server Management Studio, and that's all. In case if you have an issue with installation, feel free to call me, email me, text me. My number is 267-718-1533, and I live in Eastern Time Zone, United States. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.